A very warm welcome to all of the learners in the MOOCs of Energy Resources and Conversion Process. I am Dr. Shweta Tripathi, Assistant Professor in Mechanical Engineering from School of Engineering and Technology, Indira Gandhi National Open University. In our previous modules, we have discussed the energy and its various forms, the conventional energy sources. Now we are going to discuss that what is energy policy, which energy policy we are going to implement in India, and how we are going to follow it. The learning outcomes of this module is the knowledge of current scenario of energy resources in India, knowledge of policies that are laid down, the goals and objectives of these energy policies. You will be able to identify the key concerns which are involved in making these policies. The energy policy of India is largely defined by the country's expanding energy deficit and increased focus on developing alternative sources of energy, particularly nuclear, solid and wind energy. India attained 63% overall energy self-sufficiency in the year 2017. The primary energy consumption in India grew by 2.3% in 2019 and is in the list of third biggest after China and USA with 5.8% of the global share. The total primary energy consumption from coal is 452.2 million ton of equivalent, that is 55.88%. Crude oil is 239.1 metric ton of energy equivalent, that is 29.55%. Natural gas is 49.9 million tons of energy equivalent, that is 6.17%. Nuclear energy is 8.8 million metric ton of energy equivalent, that is 1.09%. Hydroelectric is 31.6 metric ton of energy equivalent and is nearly 3.91%, and renewable power is 27.5 metric ton of energy equivalent, that is 3.4%, and traditional biomass is 809.2 metric ton of energy equivalent in the calendar year of 2018. If we talk about 2018, India's net imports are nearly 205.3 million tons of crude oil, 205.3 million tons of crude oil and its products, 26.3 million tons of energy equivalent of LNG and 141.7 metric ton of equivalent of coal, totaling to 373.3 metric ton of energy equivalent of primary energy, which is equal to 46.13% of total primary energy consumption. India is largely dependent on fossil fuel imports to meet its energy demand, and by 2030, India's dependence on energy import is expected to exceed by 53% of the country's total energy consumption. About 80% of India's electricity generation is from fossil fuels. India is surplus in electricity generation and also marginal exporter of electricity since 2017. Since the end of the calendar year of 2015, huge power generation capacity has been idling for want of electricity demand. India ranks second after China in renewables production with 208.7 metric ton of energy equivalent in 2016. Indian solar photovoltaic tariff has fallen to 2.44, 3.4 cent of US per kilowatt hour in May 2017, which is lower than any other type of power generation in India. If we talk about the current year, that is 2020, the levelized traffic in US dollars for solar photovoltaic electricity has fallen to 1.35 cents per kilowatt hour. Also, the international tariff of solar thermal storage power plant has fallen to US dollar 0.063 per kilowatt hour, which is cheaper than fossil fuel plants. The cheaper hybrid solar plant, that are the mix of solar photovoltaic and solar thermal storage power, need not spend on costly and polluting coal or gas-fired power generation for ensuring the stable grid operation. Solar electricity price is going to become the benchmark price for deciding the other fuel prices, that is petroleum products, natural gas, biogas or LNG, CNG, PNG, coal, lignite, biomass, etc. based on their ultimate use and advantages. India's coal supply has increased rapidly since the early 2000s, and coal continues to be the largest domestic source of energy supply and electricity generation. Amid more stringent air pollution regulations, new coal power plants that are more efficient, flexible, and relatively lower in emissions will be better positioned for their economic viability. By contrast, old and inefficient plants which require expensive retrofits to comply with environmental standards are in a difficult position. An efficient coal sector is critically important not only for electricity generation but also for industrial development in areas such as steel, cement, and fertilizers. If we talk about the oil, India is the world's third largest consumer of oil, the fourth largest oil refinery, and a net exporter of refined products. As we know, the government is identifying those plants that can and will need to run more flexibly in the system. It is also examining changes to market design to improve the remuneration of the system services they can provide. The rate of growth of India's oil consumption is expected to surpass that of the People's Republic of China in the mid-2020, making India a very attractive market for refinery investment. To maintain India's position as a refining hub, the government is pursuing a very ambitious long-term roadmap to expand its refining capacity in line with the country's projected demand growth through 2040. Now comes the Indian scenario of oil and gas. As we know, India ranks third in oil consumption with 212.7 million tons in 2016 after USA and China. During the calendar year 2015, India imported 195.1 million tons crude oil and 23.3 million tons refined petroleum products and exported 55 million refined petroleum products. India has built surplus world-class refining capacity using imported crude oil for exporting refined petroleum products. The net imports of crude oil is lesser by 1/4 after accounting exports and imports of refined petroleum products. Natural gas production was 29.2 billion cubic meters and consumption 50.6 billion cubic meters during the calendar year 2015. To improve oil security, the government has prioritized reducing oil imports, increasing domestic upstream activities, diversifying its source of supply, and increasing Indian investments in overseas oil fields in the Middle East and Africa. Commendably, India is promoting domestic production with a major upstream reform, the hydrocarbon exploration and licensing policy, and is progressively building up dedicated emergency oil stocks. India's strategic petroleum reserve supplements the commercial storage available at refineries. India's current strategic reserve capacity of 40 million barrels can cover just over 10 days of current net imports. However, given the expected growth in oil consumption, the same volume may cover only 4 days of net imports in 2040. Therefore, it is important that the government pursue the second phase of its strategic stockholding policy, which would add an additional 50 million barrels and also prepares subsequent phases. The role of gas has grown in India's residential and transport sector but fallen in power generation, where imported natural gas remains squeezed by cheap renewables and coal. The government is committed to further liberalizing the country's natural gas market. Strengthening regulatory supervision of upstream, midstream, and downstream activities should be the part of the market reforms. Electricity. India's electricity security has improved markedly through the creation of a single national power system and major investments in thermal and renewable capacity. India's power system is currently experiencing a major shift to higher shares of variable renewable energy, which is making system integration and flexibility priority issues. The Government of India has supported greater interconnections across the country and now requires the existing coal fleet to operate more flexibly. It is also promoting affordable battery storage. Now comes the energy and emission. India has made important progress towards meeting the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, notably Goal 7 on delivering energy access. Both the energy and emission intensities of India's gross domestic product (GDP) have decreased by more than 20% over the past decade. This represents commendable progress even as total energy-related carbon dioxide emissions continue to rise. India's per capita emissions today are 1.6 tons of carbon dioxide, well below the global average of 4.4 tons, while its share of global total carbon dioxide emissions is some 6.4%. Then comes the energy efficiency. India has taken significant steps to improve energy efficiency, which has avoided an additional 15% of annual energy demand and 300 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions over the period 2000 to 2018, according to IEA analysis. The major programs target industry and business relying on large-scale public procurement of efficient products such as LEDs and the use of tradable energy efficiency certificates. The government's LED program has radically pushed down the price of the products in the global market and helped create local manufacturing jobs to meet the demand for energy efficient lighting. India's investment in solar photovoltaic was greater than in all fossil fuel sources of electricity generation together. Large-scale auctions have contributed to swift renewable energy development at rapidly decreasing prices. By December 2019, India has deployed a total of 84 gigawatt of grid-connected renewable electricity capacity. By comparison, India's total generating capacity reached 366 gigawatt in 2019. India is making progress towards its target of 175 gigawatt of renewables by 2022. In September 2019, the Prime Minister of India has announced that India's electricity mix would eventually include 450 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity. Progress towards these targets will require a focus on unlocking the flexibility needed for effective system integration. This can potentially be achieved by improving the design of renewable auctions with clear trajectories and criteria to reflect quality, location, and system health, and along with it, measures to foster grid expansion and demand side response across India. If we talk about the environmental concern, then India has been addressing energy-related environmental pollution since 1980s, including air, water, land, and water issues. Reducing the health impacts of air pollution is a priority. Over the years, the government has been progressively strengthened rules to combat air pollution and adopted the National Clean Air Program (NCAP), which focuses on monitoring and enforcement. Real progress on the ground has so far been limited, with the deadline for the enforcement of stringent air pollution standards for thermal power plants that are pushed back from 2017 to 2021 or 22. However, the implementation of the NCAP is expected to help to improve this issue. Then, what are the goals and objectives of these energy policies? The goals of energy policy should be ensure reliable and affordable energy services for the people while simultaneously limiting the risk and impacts of the available energy supply options on the environment. This requires increased use of the best available technologies for energy supply and energy end use efficiency, as well as increased investments in energy research and development to increase our future energy options. Energy is a crucial input for India's development process, and the first priority is to meet the energy needs of all segments of India's population in the most efficient and cost-effective manner, while ensuring long-term sustainability. Therefore, the energy policy cannot be confined to the energy industry, as energy use depends on what happens in every sector of economy. Thus, the vision for a clear-cut energy policy has to encompass all sectors of economy. A couple of examples from the transport and agriculture sectors may help you understand this point better. In the transport sector, over the last 50 years, there has been a continuous decrease in rail transport and increase in road and air transport. This has major implications for energy consumption because road and air transport are several times more intensive in energy use than efficient rail transport. If we demand for energy in the transport sector is to be reduced, then we need new technologies, new policies, and investment patterns that favor railways and mass transport rather than motorized personal transport or travel by air. For example, substantial improvements in and strengthening of rail capacity, improved telecommunications and signaling, and other infrastructure that matches improvements in rolling stock technologies would be needed. Now, what are the key concerns for a sustainable energy policy in India? Energy policy in India must focus on energy for all and build an environment-friendly, sustainable energy supply industry. The key concerns that need to be addressed by the energy policy of India in conformity with the objectives of sustainable development are to ensure security of the energy supply in both rural and urban areas as well in all the sectors of economy, by trapping our own energy resources. 2. Increase the availability and clean use of fossil fuel and managing the growing external dependence. It should encourage optimum and efficient use of energy resources, particularly in the urban areas and the transport and industrial sectors. Manage the energy industry and the energy markets, including the pricing of fuels for affordable and efficient use of clean energy. It should develop new and renewable sources compatible with energy related and environmental objectives. It should facilitate closer integration of the energy markets so as to improve the competitiveness of Indian industry without in any way neglecting the safety, quality and durability of energy equipment or public service objectives. It should promote research and technological development in the energy and related sectors. Now, what is the energy demand of India? It is estimated that energy demand in our country is going to increase from about 537 million tons of oil equivalent in 2005 to about 770 million tons of oil equivalent in 2015 and to 1300 million tons of oil equivalent in 2030. You can see from the table that the share of commercial energy, coal, oil and gas, which is 67.9% in 2005, is likely to increase to 73.51% in 2015 and is further increasing to 80.08% in 2030. The share of other energy, however, is going to decrease from 32.1% in 2005 to 26.49% in 2015 and further to 19.92% in 2030. So what we have to do? We have to reduce our energy consumption of coal, oil and natural gases, and we have to increase the consumption of nuclear, hydro, biomass and other renewable energy so as we will be able to conserve the fossil fuels that are available to us, and we will be able to reduce our dependency on the other countries as well. Now let us summarize whatever we have discussed today. We have discussed the energy policy of India, the energy resources, whether renewable or non-renewable, that are used most in India nowadays. In renewable energy, we have seen that solar and biomass are more used, while oil, CNG and coal are more used non-renewable sources. We had also learned that how these policies are laid down, what are the key concerns for them. We had discussed the effect of these policies on energy conservation, energy uses, energy application, environmental upgradation, etc. We had seen that the growing consumption of energy has also resulted in strong dependence on fossil fuels such as coal, oil and gas. Rising prices of oil and gas and potential shortages in future have led to concerns about the security of energy supply. Increased use of fossil fuels not only gives rise to the security of energy supply, but it also causes environmental problems both locally and globally. We have also identified that we urgently need to develop a sustainable path of energy development and its use. Promotion of energy conservation and increased use of renewable energy sources are some of the likely solutions to the problem. With a population of 1.4 billion and one of the world's fastest growing major economies, India will be vital for the future of the global energy market. Looking ahead, the government has laid out an ambitious vision to bring secure, affordable, and sustainable energy to all its citizens. The in-depth review aims to assist the government in meeting its energy policy objectives by setting out a range of recommendations in each area with a focus on energy system transformation, energy security, and energy affordability. The Government of India has also made significant progress in reducing the use of traditional biomass in cooking, the chief cause of indoor air pollution that particularly affects women and children. The government has encouraged clean cooking with liquefied petroleum gas. India continues to promote cleaner cooking and off-grid electrification solutions, including a shift toward using solar photovoltaic for cooking and charging batteries as well. The Government of India has made impressive progress in recent years in increasing citizens' access to electricity and clean cooking. It has also successfully implemented a range of energy market reforms and carried out a huge amount of renewable electricity deployment, notably in solar energy. Likewise, we have to utilize other renewable energy sources that are available with us, be it biomass, be it hydroelectric power plant, be it wind energy. Thank you very much.